So let's start from here. President Mahama has been talking about what's been happening on the labor front, particularly with the doctors, and he says that he will not authorize any payment outside the budget prepared for 2015. Now, according to him, the demands by the striking doctors have the tendency to adversely affect the implementation of the single spine pay policy.
2012, during the implementation of the single spine salary structure, pressures from various groups led to award of interim premiums and other compensatory allowances whose net effect ballooned our remuneration and compensation wage bill from a little under 3 billion Ghana cedis to over 8 billion Ghana cedis. This consumed nearly 73% of total tax revenues in wages and compensation alone. The effect on the economy of that increase are still being felt up to this day, and we're managing gradually to turn the situation around. We've managed, without retrenching any public sector staff, to tame the impact of wages and compensation as a percentage of tax revenues from the high of 73% to 49% currently. Remember that the ECOWAS benchmark for achieving convergence criteria is supposed to be 35%. Mr. Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen, we're dealing with a matter of equity and principle here. There are linkages and relativities between all public sector groups. Just yesterday, a friend was urging me to intervene and accede to the demand of the doctors. After all, there are only 2,800 of them, he told me. What he fails to realize is that there are 598,000 other public sector workers organized in 11 other professional groups, lined up and just waiting to see what the doctors come away with from the negotiating table before they put in their own demands. This will adversely affect the single spine pay policy and could result in breaking the spine. Ironically, I will say that if this spinal cord should break, it must not be at the hands of a group whose principal calling is rather to heal. The right to negotiate by professional groups is sacrosanct, and I believe that government and the medical officers must continue the dialogue on conditions of service to arrive at amicable resolution in an atmosphere that is devoid of coercion. Any agreements that are reached in respect of allowances or conditions of services would have to be appropriately captured in the budget. And I want to say for emphasis that I will not authorize any expenditure on wages and compensation not provided for in the budget. Fiscal discipline requires that not a single pesewa is spent on remuneration outside what has been budgeted for. And this goes for both Article 71 office holders and those on the single spine. It goes for the President as well as the lowest public sector employee. I'm determined to hold the line no matter the political cost. Our people have sacrificed enough. We cannot afford another round of belt tightening after the electoral cycle is over. And as I said, the current IMF extended credit facility must be the last time we fall back on the IMF for any respite.
Right, that was some kind of tough talking there by President Mahama. He said he won't authorize any payment outside the budget. He says that the country will still continue to stay clear when it comes to fiscal discipline. He's asking the doctors that whatever you're asking for can be captured in next year's budget. Go back to work. We'll talk about that. But whilst he said that, junior doctors in the country were simply not too happy about it. They decided that because of what the president has said, they are lending support to their senior colleagues. But for now, let's listen to the Deputy General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association, Dr. Justice Dufu Yankton. He spoke to Issa Money earlier on News 360 right here on TV3.
I'm sure you've been following the event, so let's move on to our first concern here, which is we want to find out if the statement from the president closed the door to the negotiation with the association.
Well, let me put it this way. With all due respect to you and to our cherished or your cherished listeners or viewers, I think that my good self and the association, we respect ourselves very much. We respect the office of the president, for which reason we will not want to go into a banter with him. So that will be our comments for now. But beyond that, assuming without admitting that that is the ultimate position of government for the employer, I believe that I, as an individual, and like all other doctors, we also reserve the right whether to work for a particular employer or not to work for that particular employer. I will look at my personal situation if that should look or turn out to be the ultimate decision of government. And then I'll consider myself as somebody who cannot continue taking socialist rates for the job I do, including all the excess hours I do, whilst I'm compelled to pay commercial rates for virtually everything I do. So once I assess my situation and I think that I cannot even take care of my old lady who actually gave birth to me and needs attention, I cannot pay for my medical bills when I get infections from patients that I'm attending to, and assuming I'm not able to pay for those treatments at the hospital, I'm going to lose my life. I guess I'll humbly look at the situation, and my decision may be as good as yours. So for me as a president, is what I would say. But for the association, we will not banter the president in any way. We respect him, we respect his office. He has spoken, and he can have his wishes. We wouldn't fight him at all. But I guess as individuals and collectively as a group, we also advise ourselves accordingly.
Right, so that was the Deputy General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association. Now, when President Mahama said that junior doctors across the country issued a statement, let me quickly put that on your screens there. You'll be able to read what they said. And this is a resolution adopted by, we're told here, by medical officers and house officers of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. So quickly, let me read that to you. At an emergency meeting called by the residents, medical officers and house officers of this hospital on the 5th of August 2015 to assess development post-commencement of the graded action set last motion by the General Assembly of the GMA towards the realization of conditions of service for doctors, members simultaneously resolve that we fully associate, support, and will see to the continuous implementation of the graded action until the GMA has assigned conditions of service for its members. We want to state that this action does not intend to bring undue hardship to patients or their relatives. The management or the request for conditions of service has lingered on over employers' desk for more than a year. Hence, we have no other alternative. We wish to encourage our employer to expedite negotiations for a quick resolution of this particular problem. So, junior doctors there talking about what they feel about the fact that they are supported what government or what their senior colleagues have said. Let me speak to the spokesperson of the junior doctors, Nana Kisi, or Dr. Nana Kisi Atefa. He says, join me. Doc, grateful you stay there to be part of the show tonight. Now, let's start from here. Now, you are lending support to what your senior colleagues are doing. Isn't that the case?
Yeah, exactly so. In fact, we are not only lending support, but then we want to re-emphasize that we have been part of this process from day one.
Aren't you satisfied that government says it has accepted some? We're told that your senior colleagues put out 15 demands. Government has accepted 9 and says that for the 6 that are remaining, you need to speak to Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. you need to do certain things because they have implications on the budget, on the economy, on the issue of fair wages, equity for all of you. Is that not perhaps what you guys should think about?
Thank you very much, Bryce, for the question. Now, I would say that, the only thing we are demanding for is a signed document that emphasizes or reiterates the need for us to have our conditions of service and for us to actually enjoy those conditions of service. As we speak today, we have not received any official communique from leadership. We have run our meetings down the regional levels, and nothing has come out that government has indeed given us what we are looking for. So as far as we are concerned, the roadmap is still in action. Come tomorrow by 6 o'clock, if we have not received anything, any suitable solution or anything that guarantees us our health or our safety in our times of vulnerability, we'll go ahead and follow the roadmap, as simple as that.
So, Dr. Atefa, you said you have agreed that there's a roadmap ongoing.
Exactly so.
And yet you guys are on strike.
You see, the whole thing is, I think it's time we need to clear these things. You see, I don't know who is going ahead telling us we are on strike and things. I believe our mother body has made it clear that we intend to resign because we cannot work for an employer that does not guarantee us conditions of service. We cannot work for an employer that does not ensure our well-being and our safety in our times of vulnerability. What we are actually doing is adding a human face to this. We could have decided to just almost resign immediately, but we do accept that for the patients that we have admitted to our wards, we owe them a duty of care by law. So what we are doing is that just using this window period to take good care of them, ensure they are stabilized, and then let them go, and then decide not to work again. Can we not resign in our society now? Is it illegal to resign? You have a group of people who do not have conditions of service, and clearly by the statements we have heard today, some of which make us very worried, we do realize that really our employer does not care about us. Our employer cares about the spine of the single spine's salary structure system and does not care about our spinal cord. So we would take the necessary steps to ensure that our spinal cords are protected. That is exactly what we are doing.
Let's take it from the context of the president. Would you be happy? Doctors' demands are granted. The economy is thrown into total disarray next year.
Right. You see, this is where we are baffled. We usually do not want to get into the politics of these matters, but how come when it always comes to labor unions or when it always comes to doctors, nurses, teachers, everybody all of a sudden is scared about throwing the economy into disarray? Have we not been in a country where people have passed laws and gone back to collect monies that were owed them or something into? When it happens to the politicians and government officials, it is okay. But when it happens to those of us who sacrifice our lives and work 36-hour shifts in a week, sometimes 3 times, it is not okay. Everybody all of a sudden begins to think about economic turmoil. Why should it be so? Right? Are we second-class citizens? Are they more human than we are? Are we in any way dolphins? In any case, dolphins are protected by wildlife conservation societies. We cannot always revisit the arguments of throwing the economy into turmoil whenever it comes to doctors, teachers, and other labor unions. We provide our part. The government makes a lot of money from the work we do at the hospitals. There's a lot of revenue generation. It is not an excuse to tell us that when we accept the demands of 2,800 people, we open the floodgates of. If we open the floodgates and the flood comes, what is the problem if we have the necessary facility to cushion that? Do we not pride ourselves as an oil-producing economy? We do not want to get into the politics of all those things, but we generate revenue. We do our part. So what is good for the goose should definitely be good for the gander. It cannot be that whenever it is doctors, teachers, and nurses, then when we open the floodgates, the economy will be thrown into turmoil. But when it is time for government appointees and politicians and things, then it's a different story. We are all humans and should be treated as such.
The Deputy General Secretary of the organization, the association you belong to, Dr. Justice Dufu Yankson, is saying that if the demands are factored into next year's budget, as long as government will agree and perhaps accede or pay these demands, the association should be okay. You don't accept that?
Bryce, I do not think that is exactly what our Deputy General Secretary said. In fact, I was out of theater to actually listen to him on News at 7. That is not what he's saying. He is saying that even if we are to go, negotiations is still ongoing. Even if what the President said should be the ultimate thing that is guiding us, it is not even a challenge. It can be factored into it. But the point we are raising is at this point as we speak, the conditions we have put out there, our proposal, we haven't received a good enough counter proposal or anything that has asked us to, to call off our action. So we would not be satisfied with these things, let's put it next year. I mean, these promises and things, they keep coming, but that is not what our Deputy General Secretary said.
Dr. Atefa,
now, yes.
The doctors, GMA, issues out 15 demands. Government accepts 9 of them. Government says there's 6 remaining. It has future implications on the state of Ghana. Is that what you mean by government not putting out a counter proposal?
Right. You see, what you are telling, as we speak, we have had our general meetings across countries this evening. And the information you are telling me, Mother Buddy, that is not what we have asked them to negotiate for. We have asked them to come out with the signed conditions of service. If it is acceptable to our executives, they would come back and put it to us. But as it stands right now, nothing of that sort has been done. We are not even sure if what government is saying is actually what has happened during the negotiation process.
Dr. Atefa, sorry, I have to cut in. You claim that government, you have issued a proposal. Government has not issued a counter proposal. The Minister of Employment says, You give me 15 demands. I have accepted 9. I said the 6 remaining, it has implications. So I'm referring them to the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. I'm referring them to other agencies. Isn't that a counter proposal?
Thank you. Right. You seem not to be getting the point I am trying to make here.
Okay. You go ahead and tell me really what you
stated during the General Assembly that we want conditions of service signed. As we speak, I believe you are well aware that negotiations are still ongoing. What we do not want to do is that until an official statement comes out from both parties that this and this is what has been done, we cannot trust the word of anybody. Have we not have people who have been government communicators and things, leak documents and proposals and altered figures and things? We are far above these things. We would not be subject to these verbal assurances. We are waiting until something of that sort come out. The roadmap is still in full swing. Okay.
Dr. Atefa, stay on the phone lines for me briefly. Let me speak to a labor expert. He's done a lot of issues with the labor issues, and he quickly will want to speak to us. Dansue Champon has just joined this discussion. Mr. Dansue Champon, let's first of all start from here. Government is insisting that these doctors of the Ghana Medical Association are embarking on an illegal strike, illegal action, because negotiations are ongoing. The doctors are arguing that they told their employers long ago to fix this or they will do what you're doing. Now, from where you sit, who's right? Who's wrong?
I think that since this thing started, I have granted a lot of interviews to a lot of media houses. In humility, I want to say that the whole thing has been incompetently handled.
Great.
And that if we have allowed institutions to work, I don't think we would have landed ourselves in where we find ourselves. You see, the Fair Wages Commission was created by Act 737. And among its functions is to negotiate on behalf of government with all people who take their salaries from the consolidated fund. And therefore, when the single spine started, the first thing was to translate all public service employees onto the single spine scale. Within the program, it was also anticipated that after the translation onto the single spine, because most of the public service employees were now unionized, they needed to come under collective agreement to determine their terms and conditions of service. Because when they become unionized and they get bargaining certificates, they don't need to operate under memorandum of understanding and co as it used to be when they were in association forms. And therefore, if the people handling industrial relations for and on behalf of government knew exactly what they wanted to do, they would have foretold all these things. Now, when this, this thing has been lingering around for almost 2-3 years now.
Great.
And therefore, when finally the proposals from this was sent, see, my initial thinking was that the whole health services workers, we have an omnibus collective agreement for them, within which you have doctors, you have the pharmacists, the nurses, and then the non-professional staff. Because if you look into the classification of the services within the public sector, under the single spine, they were grouped into 9 service classifications. And all the 9 in future should have some collective agreement to guide their operation. Therefore, when the doctors one was isolated and the proposals were sent, in any good industrial practice, all what they needed to do was that they needed to send the thing to the government for them to cost exactly what the proposals would be. The labor law under Section 87 now calls something good faith negotiation. And therefore, we needed to go at the table, let the government bring all the facts that maybe the proposals you brought, these are the limitations that we have. And this year we will not be able to meet all. So you may go through the whole thing and get a collective agreement signed. The date of implementation could be postponed so that at least you clear this lingering problem that has been on our neck for all this while.
So you think that it is the date of implementation of perhaps an agreed document is where the problem is?
No, the point is that first they need to negotiate. It's when you have negotiated, then you know the true value of the cost of the negotiation. For now, if you say you want to postpone it into your future budget, what are you going to put in your future budget?
But
if they have done the negotiations, okay, based on the proposals, and they have signed a binding collective agreement, then the date of implementation could also be fixed.
Okay.
That would have given the government the time. They say, look, because we could not capture this in our budget for this year, what we have agreed upon will be implemented next year by this time. And therefore, in between this, if there are some monetary things,
Mr. Champo,
hold this one as an advance payment.
Mr. Champo,
Mr.
Champo, let me ask you this. The president, in the statement he made, clearly suggests that government is unable to implement this in this year's budget. So it says that whatever negotiations that we're going, that is implying that whatever negotiations that is ongoing can only be captured perhaps in next year's budget. Is it that the GMA perhaps has not gotten that formal information from government? That is why it is still insisting that it will go ahead with what it is doing?
No, the point is that, that's what I'm saying, that the whole thing has been partly handled. This matter should not come from the president into the open.
Exactly.
You see, the Fair Wages Commission has been mandated to negotiate on behalf of government.
Okay, let's begin to talk about finding a solution. So you are insisting that, for instance, the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission should then take over from what the president said today and begin to tell the doctors that we agree or we want to continue negotiations, but what we're talking about could only or will only be factored into next year's budget. Is that your suggestion?
If that is the way to go.
Great.
If you are a negotiator, when the proposals are sent, it may be sent to the board and all those people for them to approve.
Okay.
And then those who are negotiating for the company will be mandated that this is the level that you can reach.
Okay, hold on for me. Dr. Atefa.
Yes, right.
You're still on the phone. Now, you had a president said today that government is simply unable to factor your demands or the demands of your senior colleagues into the budget for 2015. Government says it will throw fiscal discipline out of the roof. Now, you earlier defended your Deputy General Secretary that he did not say that the GMA will accept if government agrees to factor your demands into next year's budget. But a labor expert is thinking that if there's a formal notification that accept these, your demands to be inputted into 2016, you should be able to accept and go ahead. Is that also difficult?
Thank you, Bright. I would re-emphasize and reiterate, as it stands now, the General Assembly for the Ghana Medical Association has tasked leadership to come out of negotiations with a signed conditions of service document. In fact, the government is telling us it cannot capture it in their budget this year.
Okay.
The point we want to tell government is that, as a matter of fact, from close of day tomorrow, we cannot also continue working and trying to break our spines without protection. Right? The issue is not as if we are insensitive or anything, or you are coming back from working 24-hour shifts and being exposed to tuberculosis and HIV/AIDS and all those things. You are asking us we've been doing this for years. You are asking us to move. You are giving us a sign of. You see, that is not even what the General Assembly is saying. What we have stated is that there is a roadmap. We want our conditions of service. If you value our lives like you'd want all of us to believe, then you'd give us our conditions of service as simple and short as possible. You've done it when it comes to other people. Be able to do it for them. You see, that's our concern now. That when you speak to every doctor everywhere, that's our concern. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, the Immigration Service had their conditions of. It never even came out. Why is it that when it comes to the issue of medical doctors, then everybody jumps up and you have attacking docs and everybody coming to have a bite at us? You push us so much to the wall, and when we jump, you tell us don't jump. We should.
So. Dr. Atefa, in short, you're saying that, well, you don't care whether government is ready to accede to your demands in 2015 or 2016. You're simply asking that you want it today.
We are saying, let me just state, we are saying that in as much as we realize that our patients' lives are important, we are also humans and our lives are important. We cannot work without conditions of service. Even dolphins are protected by wildlife.
So you want it today?
Exactly.
The president talking about next budget isn't simply what you want.
Right. I don't see how we work beyond tomorrow without conditions.
Okay, hold on. So let me speak to Mr. Champo again. So, Mr. Champo, so this is how entrenched the position of this particular labor union is.
No, I think maybe you didn't get me well. What I'm saying is that what the president is saying that this year's budget cannot take care of this. It's not a matter that you have been put in the open.
Okay.
The point is that they should have gone back to the negotiation table, and then the understanding is that, yes, because we haven't captured this, we will conclude a collective agreement based on all the parameters that we will agree on and sign. The implementation date will be this time.
Okay.
That situation, you have negotiated the terms and conditions of service. They can go and show back to their constituents that this is it. The implementation date is this. This thing happens in practice.
Okay.
But you don't say that you are not going to negotiate and therefore next year. I mean...
No. The president says negotiations, as far as labor unions are sacrosanct, they can go ahead to negotiate. But he is saying that in capturing the demands, 2015 budget is out. The president did not rule out negotiation. He said it is ongoing. And that government will still sit at the table. But he is insisting that acceding to the demands for 2015 simply out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that are all negotiable. I think that if they go in good faith and they don't begin politicizing and creating furore around it so that everybody begins talking about a very simple issue. A proposal has been submitted, somebody put it on the internet.
Okay.
Immediately you create that. You see, you poison the atmosphere and you get people entrenched in certain positions.
Okay.
All what I'm saying is that, please, the doctors should also understand that proposal has been made. It may cost money to implement the totality of their collective agreement. The monetary aspect, everything should be calculated. And then see how much the government can pay within this year. Then what can be paid next year.
Okay.
The only thing is that there should be good faith and respect for each other. When they do that, they should be able to craft a new collective agreement or for the doctors today. But the total implementation may not be through the whole this year. A little of it may be given to them, but next year, when budget takes it, they pay off. But once the doctors know that these are our terms and conditions of service, the implementation is partially this year and full implementation next year.
Grateful.
I think they are reasonable beings.
Grateful.
They will be able to meet the whole nation halfway. And that's the thing that should be done by those, especially fair wages. They need to use their professional background to talk to government that in negotiating, give us a mandate, let's talk to them. Then the implementation is also another level for negotiation itself.
Okay.
That is how it's done that's how it's in practice.
Grateful. Labor expert, Mr. Danso Champo, we're grateful. Let me wrap up with Dr. Atefa. So, Dr. Atefa, you have already told me that all that you're asking for is that you're not thinking about tomorrow, you're not thinking about the next day, you're not thinking about the next week, you're not thinking about next month. You want your conditions of service signed into law so that tomorrow when perhaps you are unconscious, your family can go to Kolebu or wherever you work and say that, well, this is what my relatives signed and I'm coming for it. Now, do you see an end to this impasse? Is it possible that the two of you, your employees, can end this confusion?
Thank you very much, Bright. Once again, from the General Assembly, the only end to this impasse we see is government signing our conditions of service into law. I mean, I would emphasize again that what is good for the goose is good for the gander. We've done it for other essential service members. There is no reason you cannot do it for us. And we do not understand why, whenever it comes to doctors, we throw in the arguments of economic turmoil. We have to state it clear. It is not the only end we see in sight. Is our conditions of service being signed out tomorrow. And Bright, let me just do some quick. I just want to let the Ghanaian populace know that it is not as if we are insensitive. No, never. We care about them, and even in this period, we have demonstrated that we truly care about them. We have reached a point that we cannot continue sacrificing our lives without anybody looking over our shoulders, and that is why we are doing this. We would advise that in the meantime, as it looks like, because the president has come out to say what he thinks, so it looks like we are gradually getting to the point where we would have to withdraw emergency services by close of day tomorrow. So we are advising them that if you start certain basic public health things, you should reduce your salt intake, you should engage in 45 minutes exercises about 4 to 7 times a week, you should exercise a lot, you should reduce smoke cessation. If you drive and drink at the same time, stop these things so that you don't get accidents in the periods that we are going to, because clearly our employer has demonstrated that he doesn't care about our spinal cord, and we would have to now consider and look after our spinal cord ourselves. So that is all we are asking them to do now. So Ghanaians, take preventive health care measures. Go to the gym, work out, reduce your salt intake, reduce smoke cessation, reduce alcohol intake. Make sure that you stay healthy during this period. Read a lot on the internet when you are sick, and just hold the fort till our employer also accepts that our spinal cord is just as important as theirs, and they give us our conditions of service. Only then will we come back. It is not that we are insensitive. We love you, and we have demonstrated it several times in the consulting room. Thank you very much, Bright.
Dr. Kisi Atefa speaks for junior doctors. I'm grateful that you agree to speak to us. And of course, we'll try also to get to speak to the head of labor in Ghana, Dr. Kofi Samoa, Secretary General there. Of course, the issue did not end with doctors. The president mentioned Article 76 holders, and he says government would simply not agree to any increase about salaries, remuneration, wages, and all that, simply to stay in fiscal discipline lines. We'll try and get Dr. Kofi Samoa to speak to. But, of course, you can also reach us on 0302-763-450. That's the phone line you can reach us on, and we'll tell you to speak to on what you think. But let me speak to Dr. Kofi Samoa. He's the Secretary General of the Ghana Trade Union Congress. He has agreed to speak to us. Dr. Kofi Samoa, we're grateful. Now, what the president said, and the fact that he said that in order to stay in the fiscal discipline the government has agreed for itself in 2015, he is suggesting that all these agitations about increment in wages, salaries, allowances, remuneration would have to hold on, perhaps, and to be captured into the 2016 budget. The president is speaking some, if I should put it, some good sense of economics. Don't you think so?
If the statement we issued is anything to go by, leaders of the public sector unions of organized labor, out of our meeting, has been thinking about how to sanitize the situation.
Great.
I must frankly tell you that as part of the statement, we've also stated that all parties must avoid discussion of issues under negotiation in the media. So it will be sincerely out of place for me to add up also to the very thing that we are seeking to do.
Okay.
What we are doing is that the leaders of organized labor felt that, we assess the situation, look for the root cause of the problems that is before us, the upsurge of agitation, labor unions, particularly in the health sector. And then that the best approach is to appeal to all parties to go back to the negotiation table and then avoid anything that will inflame passions and that will rather worsen the situation that we are in. I will not therefore attempt to comment on what the president said.
Great.
Because as part of negotiations, we know ability to pay and all other things are factors and principles of negotiation. But in the situation we find ourselves, with all respect to you, our desire is to ensure that sanity prevails. On the basis of that, I'm appealing to both parties to go back to the negotiation table and equally also ask both the Medical Association and the Government Hospital Pharmacists Association, GOSPA, and all others to refrain and to resume work while negotiations continue. Under the principle and also from the premise that I'm speaking, I do not want to react to all those things because it will end up inflaming passions, and that's exactly what we are trying to avoid.
Okay, Dr. Kofi Asama, I'm grateful for you agreeing to speak to. What you've told us is good enough. I'm sure all your labor union leaders are listening and they will abide by what you have agreed on. Dr. Kofi Asama is the Secretary General of Ghana's Trades Union Congress. Pardon me if I told you that the article particularly concerned with government functionaries is Article 76. 71, Article 71 of office holders. And of course, that's what the president mentioned, Article 71 office holders. The president says, don't ask for more, we won't give you. Now,